It's an old American axe. Here's another old American axe. I bought this for I think $8. It's a little hatchet. It's got a good sturdy hickory handle on it. It's a Lions brand axe. Some old American brand. I don't think I've ever heard of them until I picked this thing up. Sharp as a razor. I sharpened it, touched it up very, very little. I left the handle alone on it because it was nice and tight. Didn't have to do anything with it. I did sand it down and give it a coat of linseed oil, and I still have to make a leather cover for it. But for, what did I say, $9 or whatever it was, another really good small hatchet that you can put in your pack and forget about, because it really doesn't weigh nothing. I actually use this in my house every day right now because it's my kindling splitting axe. But you use what you want. The next ones are, this is a leather cover that it's not quite done for it. The next one is a hewing axe. I paid $8 for this. It's razor sharp. It's your typical hewing axe. It's the blade's offset on one side and only ground sharp on the other, and it is what it's used for. It's for hewing logs or whatever. I actually use this as one of my carving axes because I do make lots of bows and lots of atlatls and stuff like that, and I found these smaller hewing axes make a great carving axe, so that's what I use them for. And I actually have, this one's a traditional one. It's only ground on one side. And everything's offset. That way you're not busting your knuckles when you're using it. Now, I did pick up another one which I thought was kind of interesting. And it actually turned out to be even a better carving axe than that one. And it's still a hewing axe, but when somebody, the guy before me or whoever owned it last, when they sharpened this axe, they didn't sharpen it right. And what they did was they left most of the bevel on this side, and then I noticed that they turned around and they ground a little bit off of this side. Well, I saw that and I thought, you know, I'm going to take that home. See how it was. This was another one that I think it cost me about $8. And what I did was I ended up finding out that after I had sharpened this up, I took the handle off of it because the handle was a little loose, refinished it, put the handle back on, put a new wedge in it, everything's nice and tight now, made the leather cover for it. But what I found out was, being that it's a little bit sharpened on this side and mostly sharpened on the other side, that when I'm using it for carving, which is basically all I ever use the hewing axes for, I found that I could do some really delicate carving with this easier with this one than I can with this one. This one seems like it wants to hog more material off, and this one seems like it doesn't. So, you know, everybody carves a little differently. I do a lot of carving. I carve cookses and bows and, you know, all kinds of stuff. But anyways, it turned out that this one actually ended up being a nicer carver, which says another thing. If you see something and you look at it and you think, that doesn't look quite right, but maybe I got a use for it, and it's a decent price, pick it up. You take it home. You know, you never know. That thing that you thought was sharpened absolutely wrong, some guy 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 years ago that probably used this axe every day probably sharpened it that way for a reason. He knew something we didn't, probably. So, that being done, now let's talk about knives. Now, I've got some pretty fancy knives and I've got some pretty basic knives. And I'll talk about the knives I picked up at flea markets first, okay? Of course, everybody loves the old hickory knife. I picked this up at a flea market. It cost me, I think, about $11. Okay, I know the new ones are like 11 or 12 bucks too, but this is an older one. It's a little thicker, a little heavier, and it's just a little bit better knife. So $11, old hickory knife. and I'm actually working on the sheath for it right now, which I haven't finished. Might go ahead and make a sheath for that and videotape it so you guys can see it. Okay, the next one I bought at a freaking flea market too. Saw this laying in a big box. Didn't think anything of it. Thought, oh man, it's just another one of those old junk knives that somebody sharpened way too much. Well, all I saw was the handle. I pulled it out, and yes, it's been sharpened quite a bit, but it's an old-fashioned skinning knife. I guess they used to call these buffalo skinners. I reworked it a little bit because it had been sharpened quite a bit, so I took a little bit out of this area and ground it down and then resharpened it and cleaned everything up and redid the handle. The handle was actually nice and tight, so all I did was sand it down and put a little linseed oil on it and sharpened it. And I'll tell you what, this thing's about razor sharp. I have no idea how old it is. It has no markings on it whatsoever, but I know that I just got this over the winter, so I haven't had a chance to use it. Come this fall, I'll be skinning a deer with it, or at least using it to help skin a deer. Just a really good knife for $1, guys. I paid $1 for that. $1 for a skinning knife is not bad at all. Okay, next one. I was at a flea market, but it was an indoor one. And there was this lady, and she had all kinds of kitchen goods in there. And she had this nice old butcher knife in there. It's another one that has no name on it, but it is a little heavier than the old hickory knife. It's got, I believe, a 7 or 8 inch blade on it. It's a little bigger than I would ever really use for bushcraft, but I bought it, fixed it up, sharpened it, made the plain style quiver for it, and this knife will get used exactly what it's for, butchering. I won't do anything else with it but butcher with it. That being said, I liked this profile of a knife, so I had been looking for a smaller one so that I could use it as kind of a butcher slash bushcraft type knife. Well, anyways, I did find one, but it wasn't exactly the one I wanted, so I took a chance and bought it at an online auction, got it home, and realized it wasn't quite as heavy as I thought it was. But we'll talk about that in a second. But anyways, this is an old 6-pin knife. I have no idea how old it is. Probably pretty old, I'm guessing, because I don't even think they used brass pins in this. I think they're all old steel pins. But anyways, put it in the quiver. $4, guys. A $4 knife. Not bad. The next one on the table is that small butcher knife that I thought was a little heavier. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's razor sharp. I mean, beyond razor sharp. And I'm gonna make a sheath for it and probably use it for just a little bit of everything. Some butchering, some bushcraft, whatever. The handle needs retightened on it and new pins put on it, so that'll be the next project. And I still need to make a sheath for it. But anyways, that's the next one. I paid, I think, $3 for this one. Now, there is, of course, I'll show you guys this one. Paid $12 for it online. It's the old Mora Life. Everybody knows about them. Everybody knows they're good. They're bulletproof. I use this a lot for my wood carving because that is exactly what it's for. Usually if I take this with me, I usually take another knife. Actually, I usually take 3 or 4 knives with me all the time because I'm always playing around with new things. But usually this is my go-to knife. This is the knife that I spent last winter building for myself. Made it from an old file, and it's only got a 4-inch cutting surface, but that's not a big deal to me because I always carry an axe with me anyways, or at least a small hatchet. But anyways, this one's made from an old file, cherry handle for the woods, cherry wood for the handles, I'm sorry, and 3 pins. Made it myself, free. A free knife. I think I paid $1 for the file, somewhere along. Made the sheath out of some old leather that I had laying around. Another deal, free, except for the pins and stuff that I've got on it, and rivets and stuff. But you can buy those very, very cheap. And last but least is another knife that I made. I made this a long time ago, and it has actually skinned some deer and cleaned some deer and the whole 9 yards. And it's the same thing. It's a file knife. Made it for free. It's got 2 big heavier pins in it. Of course, I keep fire steels on the sheaths of some of my knives, and it's another great knife. But the whole point of this whole video was to show you guys what you could get at a low price. And I think I'm going to make a series out of this. I'm going to do quite a few videos, and if you guys like them, I'll keep going on the videos. If I don't get anything out of them, you know, as far as responses, or people don't like them, then I may not continue. But anyways, if you like the video, subscribe, like them. You know, you can visit my website. It's ancientprimitivehunter.com. You know, just want to say thank you. Thank you guys all for your subscriptions and your likes and your comments. And if you want to comment about anything, just comment, let me know. I mean, email me, whatever. I'm happy to talk to anybody when it comes to bushcraft and such. Okay, well, I'm going to sign out right there and say thank you. Thank you very much.